Hello, my name is Clive, and I'm going to be talking you through the A-Level Media Studies course here at 161 College, and what some of the things are that we offer on the A-Level Media Studies course. So, Media Studies is a really great course, very, very popular. It's a challenging and progressive course, and it asks questions essentially about ourselves, about society, and explores how we perceive certain people, certain places, and certain ideas through media texts. So there's quite a lot of crossover with sociology, for example. There's quite a lot of crossover with perhaps graphics and these kinds of subjects. We consider how much we're influenced by the media texts that we see, the media texts that we consume as individuals. New technology obviously means we now have a greater access to more media more frequently than ever before. It's the most immersive time really in media for the mass audience. But how has this affected us? Is it better? Is it worse? We look at the pros and the cons of this and the impact that it has on a wider mass audience. We also consider how representations of people and representations of issues have changed over the last 70 years, the way that people are represented and why that might be. We also consider, as an audience ourselves, how are we influenced by the things that we see? Are we influenced at all? If so, how much? And if not, why not? So we explore all of these kinds of ideas and the theories that are associated with them, and we get to know the subject of media in a lot more depth. We break this down into 4 pillars on the course. These are media language, representation, audience, and industry. These are the 4 key areas of all study of media. The media language is the technical codes, the visual codes, all of the visual and audible elements that we see and hear that makes up the language of media. These are the things that producers use to put a message across to somebody, to an audience, a big audience, a small audience, and how that message is interpreted is by decoding that media language. So we get to understand that concept and we explore that idea. That media language is then used to construct a representation. This could be of certain people, this could be a representation of certain places, certain events, something that's happened. And these representations are presented to the audience by using that media language. Building on from that, the audience are then targeted in a certain way. There are media texts that are created that appeal to certain audiences, and the audience obviously respond to the text. They may respond in the way that the producer has intended. They may respond in a different way. But we have to understand that obviously all audiences are different and individual, but we can categorize audiences in certain ways to make assumptions about how they might respond to a certain representation. So media language, representation, and audience are intrinsically linked in this way. And all of this exists within the context of an industry. For example, the 4th pillar, industry, looks at things like new technology and how new technology has allowed more consumer-based producers to create higher quality films and videos that compete with, Hollywood-style production. New technology has changed how the audience can consume audio and video content on the go, not just in the home. So this industry context has had a huge impact on how the media industry exists, the strategic decisions they've made over the years, and how it has entirely changed some industries, such as the news industry, for example. So we really explore these 4 pillars in a lot of depth in media studies, and this really helps us to understand as individuals what it is that we're exposed to in the media and how we could decide to respond to that rather than just responding to it in the way that we maybe passively just naturally do. The course is broken down into 3 components. There's the component 1 exam, which is split into 2 sections. The first section we look at news, not just print news, but online and social media news as well, and what we call participatory media. So the idea of news feeds and how that has changed over time. We then also look at media language and representation, and we'll analyze a variety of texts from advertising and marketing products through to magazines and music videos. And we'll just break down what media language is being used and which representations are being constructed. In the Component 2 exam, we look at the media industries and audience responses. So we'll look at the film industry, the radio industry, and the video games industry, how they've changed over time. And we'll look at some set products to understand those industries in a bit more detail, and also how the audience may respond to certain radio programs or certain film trailers and certain video games. And then the second part of the Component 2 exam, we'll look at long-form television drama. And we look at two long-form television dramas, one that's produced in the US and one that's produced in Europe. So we look at what we would call a relatively mainstream long-form television drama versus an alternative long-form television drama. And we can compare those two different products and try and identify what crossover there is, what differences there are, and just a general in-depth analysis. Then the third component is what we would traditionally call coursework. It's now referred to as a non-examined assessment. And this is where you have to produce something, and you'll need to produce a cross-media product. There's a variety of briefs that we can choose from, but with all of the briefs, there's an inclusion of a little bit of camera work, a little bit of editing, some sort of design skills, and some kind of branding or marketing skills. We will teach you all of the skills you need to be able to produce your cross-media product. But whichever brief you choose, the weighting of these elements is slightly different. So if you were to choose the television brief, you'd be doing quite a lot of camera work and editing and not so much in the way of design. If you were to choose the magazine brief, you would be doing quite a lot of design and photography, but not so much in the way of kind of video and editing work. So we can talk you through those different briefs when we come to that component. That will run from the end of year 12 through to the start of year 13. And that's normally due in around October time, October half term, in the second year of the course. Some of the texts we look at throughout the course, we mentioned video games, films, advertising and marketing, and radio. These are just an example of some of the things that we'll look at. Minecraft as a video game, the BBC Radio 1 breakfast show. We've got an advert there from LucasAid and an advert from Old Spice. And we kind of look at the differences of these adverts in the way that they're produced and who they're trying to target and how. And then the Jungle Book, the sort of original version and the more up-to-date version. And, there are many more texts that we study, but these are just some of the texts that we'll study throughout the course. As far as the exam is concerned, this part of the course is a close textual analysis of a range of diverse media texts, mainstream and alternative. Students will learn the skills of analysing texts. These are really useful skills, whatever course you may want to go on to in the future, even if it's not straight away. The skill of academically analysing something, decoding it, pulling it apart, trying to understand what's gone into it is a really useful skill to have. So we'll decode the media language that's been used to present a certain message to the audience. And we'll also evaluate what the impact of that message is, to what extent that message might be affecting the audience. So we'll learn some really in-depth analysis skills. It requires students to understand the context of when and where the text was constructed and how that context may have influenced the outcome. Context is really key. The exam board put a really strong focus on context on this course, and rightly so, because we have to understand what was going on in the world when a certain advert was produced, to understand how the audience at the time might respond compared to how an audience at a different time might respond. The students are assessed in two exams. Component 1 looks at contemporary news across multiple platforms such as print and also social media and participatory news, as well as media language and representation, which we mentioned already. Component 2 looks at the media industries and a variety of audience theory, trying to understand a bit better how and why people might respond in a certain way, as well as an in-depth analysis of mainstream and long-form television drama. So, firstly, if we're going to look at an advert here and have a go at analysis, the first question you ask is, if we look at this advert for Dior here, what do we see? We've got to break down everything on the page. Okay, and it can be difficult to start with because we're so used to just looking at these adverts and just seeing an advert and it goes straight into us as an advert. To break this down and to slow down our thinking can be a little bit tricky to start with, but it's a good skill to learn. So we can look at the images that have been used. We can look at the colors that have been used, the words, the layout, the different styles of font. I've got a couple of different styles of font there, whether there's any iconography. We've got obviously the Eiffel Tower in the background there, the choice of language and these kinds of things. And we have to remember, when someone's produced an advert like this, nothing has ended up there by chance. It's all been placed there for a reason. So it's up to us to understand what that reason is. So we can then explain what the choice of these elements are and how they've created a message. So what do you think that message is? What's the overall message in this advert? How has the woman in the landscape been presented to us, the audience? And what's the context of this? If we were to say the institution, for example, or the organization that's created this, what are they trying to achieve? Who are they trying to target? What are they trying to achieve by creating this advert? So a final kind of thought, who do you think the intended audience is for this? Sometimes it's easy to come up to the final conclusion, and the more difficult bit can be understanding how you've got to that conclusion. So really have a think about that. In regards to the coursework is referred to as the NEA, or non-examined assessment. Students are given a choice of cross-media production briefs, one main task and one sort of ancillary task. For example, there's a magazine brief that has the front cover, double page spread, and a contents page for a specialist magazine for 30 to 45-year-olds. And then the task 2, the kind of secondary task, is to create a related website with an article and some audio or some audio-visual content. A lot of this work is done in class. We provide all of the students with the equipment they need and the resources to make a really professional-looking creative portfolio. We're very lucky in regards to the A-level because in the department we also run a couple of BTEC courses which have a requirement for us to be very highly equipped in regards to having cameras. We've got a green screen studio, we've got professional photography flash, really high quality lenses, lights, filters, light modifiers, all sorts of things for our BTEC classes that the A-level students can then use for their coursework, which means in general, as a centre, we tend to produce really highly scoring coursework because we're very well equipped to produce really nice magazine style fashion shoots and this kind of thing. This work is assessed by teachers and it's moderated by the exam board. And this is just a couple of examples of things that students have done in the past. A little bit more tricky in recent times with things such as lockdowns. So these outcomes are not necessarily as high as what they would usually be, but you can see that these are nice looking conventional magazine front covers. In regards to yourself as individuals, what can you do to be a successful student? Well, first of all, take an interest in the subject. It will really help your understanding of current issues and debates. If you know what's going on in the world, if you're just looking at the news every so often, that's going to really help you as a student. Be organized. It sounds kind of obvious, but have a folder to put your notes in and your handouts. Make sure you have lined paper and pens. Be punctual. Often at the start of lessons, we give out quite key information. We set the tone for what we're going to be doing for the next 2 hours or so in the lesson. And there's key information about the content and the topic. If you miss that start of the lesson, it can make things very difficult for you. So, make sure you turn up on time. Ask lots of questions and get clarification if you're not sure. We're never, ever going to make anyone feel bad for asking a question. The more questions you ask, the better. Please ask as many questions as you can. And also, what would really help you to be a successful student is to learn to be independent. It's a big jump from GCSE up to A-level, and you really need to be ready to manage your time and to kind of work independently. As a result, you will find it's a lot more rewarding as a student working at A-level, working more independently, taking responsibility for your own learning, and having a bit of freedom to think about how you learn best. So these are all great things to step up to, but it is a step up. So the course offers a variety of texts. We look at analytical and practical content. We look at a bit of historical content and some topical content. It links in with some other subjects such as sociology, history, politics, as well as creative subjects like photography, film studies, art. Access to a huge range of professional equipment. We are very lucky here. We're extremely well equipped in regards to cameras, audio equipment, filming equipment, our studio and everything. You also have access to the Creative Cloud, so you'll have your own login to the Adobe Creative Cloud, which means you can download all of your own software on your own computer if you want to, and that will synchronize with our computers here at the college, regardless of whether you have a Windows computer or a Mac. These are things like Adobe InDesign, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere Pro, the full package you'll have access to. Google for Education is what we use to submit work. So Google Classroom, really nice user-friendly system for you to hand in assignments and receive back marks. And we use that to regularly assess and track your progress. So that's a really nice system. Media is a good starting point for many university courses, and it's quite generic in that sense. We've had lots of students go on from media to study all sorts of degrees. So public relations, advertising, marketing, communications, digital content, all sorts of things. So it's a really useful course from that point of view. In regards to preparing yourself, it would be great for you to complete this task and send it over to us. So create a timeline of key technological developments from 1900 to the present, or recreate a film poster using a software app of your choice. This should include original photography. Try using Adobe Spark or Canva. They're free online tools. They're really great for creating a nice page layout. You can then download your page layout and send it to us. Or just think about, how do you get your news and why? Is it from other people? Is it firsthand? Is it in your household? Do you read the newspaper? Does your household have a newspaper? It'd be great to just kind of think about these things, okay? When we talk about key technological developments, we're talking about in the media industries, okay? So pick one of these things to do, or you can do them all if you want to. Send them over to us. If you're not sure how to get in touch, then go through the website, get in touch with our reception team, and they'll forward things on to us as a media team, okay? Thank you very much for your time, and we can't wait to see you in September.